It's become tradition in Fargo. When the calendar hits December, playoff football comes to town. Bison completing a perfect regular season with a beatdown of Southern Illinois. Earning a #1 overall seed for the FCS playoffs and a first-round bye. Montana State comes off its first playoff victory in 4 years, led by quarterback Troy Anderson. Bobcat offense has been barreling through teams the second half of the season, beating a rival to secure a playoff spot. It's business as usual for the Bison as NDSU looks to take the first step towards Frisco and another national championship.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome into the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. I am Alex Egan. She is Beth Hool, and it is playoff time.
Yes, got a little bit of a break, rejuvenated, rested, ready to go. Feels good to be back in studio, though. Feels good to be talking Bison football again. Kind of that second season, if you will. It's always how I've kind of looked at it. Everything kind of resets, and now you're playing for your life. Yeah, I think Coach Kleiman said it. You know, we're judged on what we do in the postseason here at NDSU, so it's judging time. It's time to get judged. That's what I'm saying. That's what we're going to do. I think they're ready for it. NDSU and Montana State, one of 8 games being played today. There's some later today. There's some that are underway right now. Of course, the winner of Colgate and James Madison would come here should the Bison get past Montana State today. That's all for down the road. We can talk about it a little bit later. But first, let's go out to the Dome. We join the other members of our pregame show and our broadcast team. Let's first start with Ryan Gellner. Ryan.
Yeah, hi guys. It is the calm before the storm as North Dakota State takes on Montana State this afternoon. Kickoff in about 1 hour from right now. The Bison will play their 31st playoff game since 2010. Of course, in 2010, the Bison traveled out to Montana State in the second round of the FCS playoffs and pulled off a stunner in that football game. The Bison, of course, would lose the following week, but since 2010, NDSU won it all in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then again last year in 2017. That Montana State game in the snow was a sight to see. DJ McNorton, the middle screen. McNorton, that is, finished with 207 yards, 4 touchdowns for the Herd. Since then, it has almost been amazing. North Dakota State has played in 28 postseason playoff games, and since 2010, Montana State has played in just 6. Plus, this is the first time Montana State comes to the Fargo Dome. Lee Timmerman is here as well. He joins us from the field. Hi, Lee.
Hey, Ryan, thanks. The doors of the Fargo Dome have just opened, and over the course of the next hour, we will talk about a lot of names and numbers for these two teams, but I'm going to throw out a couple of numbers right off the bat I think are important. Playoff experience. That's really huge on the Bison side of the 2 deep rosters. NDSU has 21 seniors on the 2 deep. Montana State on its 2 deep only has 8. So those numbers might really be a huge advantage, I think, for the Bison today. The Bison also in this building have won 21 of their last 22 playoff games. So we're expecting a lot this upcoming hour, and to get more on that, let's go back to the studio now with Beth and Alex. Guys.
All right, thank you very much, guys. We'll be checking in with them throughout the rest of the show. Do you want to mention Brian Shaw not with us today? He's in Minneapolis getting ready for an NDSU basketball game that he'll be calling. So he's not with us. He should be joining us next week, though, should we have that quarterfinal. They're playing a basketball game in a football stadium. What a wild concept that is. There we go. There it is. Okay. As LT said, you know, we're going to talk about a lot of numbers and guys and things to keep in mind. So let's get into it. Of course, this Montana State team, their offense goes as this guy's go. And truth be told, if he could be on the defensive side, which they probably would like him there, he would be as their defense would go too. This is Troy Anderson. And he has been this year. Yeah, he has. He actually has a sack and a forced fumble against South Dakota State, but he's got not great passing numbers. He is not a passer. He is a runner. He is a running quarterback to the T. He wears number 15. He's 6'3", 225. He is Tim Tebow. Well, he is Tim Tebow. Yeah, that was like the first thing out of your mouth this week when we saw this young man. But the reason he's such a runner and not a passer is because he played running back. He played linebacker. That's what he was. He has quarterback in his history. But his college experience is running back and it is linebacker. And then they were in need of a quarterback.
and he was that guy. He's sort of the reverse James Hendricks, if you will,
yeah.
from NDSU, a concept that Bison fans are obviously familiar with. He is their Swiss Army knife, and he's done a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, he's got over 1,200 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns, 20 rushing touchdowns, I should say, which is a Montana State single-season record. And he is fast for a 6'3", 225 kid. He is very fast.
And more than anything, what stands out about a guy like that is he's somebody who wants to help the team in any way he can. And that is something you hear so often inside those walls of Bison football. You're going to hear a lot of things today that we say about Montana State that you go, well, that sounds familiar, because that's what the Bison have been doing. It is a purpose. There is a blueprint that Montana State and their head coach, Coach Choate, is trying to follow. And it's very similar to what the Bison have done. And he's a perfect example of one of those guys who's playing for the guy next to him. And that, in turn, makes everybody else work extra hard to work for him.
So the Bison defense is going to have their hands full with Troy Anderson today. We caught up with one of the key points in that Bison defense. That's middle linebacker Dan Marlette. And we asked him about Troy Anderson.
He's an athlete. And, you know, their offense goes because of him. A lot of quarterback run game, a lot of mobility out of him. And so I think just keeping him contained is our #1 goal. He's got however many touchdowns over this year, and it's insane how much they use him and how athletic he is.
So I asked Dan before, you know, hey, when you were scouting and you're taking a look at Montana State tape, where did 15 come up in your points of emphasis? And he said he was #1. He was the first thing that you notice, and you're going to see him a lot. Montana State does a lot of weird things with their offense because he is not your prototypical passing quarterback. So they move him around in different formations. They have him as a quarterback, and then out as a receiver, they run wildcat stuff. So Montana State very multiple in their offenses.
And with that, with all of those shifts and changes that they do and the different things that they're going to throw at you, it requires this defense to have a great focus on their communication this week. And that's something that it's kind of been harped on throughout the year. The Bison really all year saying that their communication wasn't so good there in the middle of the season. It was something they sort of simplified some of that play calling, some of those signals to really be able to focus in on it. Now, while they're confident in the communication and what they've been able to develop, they did say that this week it's going to be even more important, especially because they are expecting a raucous crowd inside that Fargo Dome, not just on third down, but every down. They are expecting something big, and that makes it tough on the defense, but they're prepared for it and they're expecting it.
So as much as Montana State has a great quarterback, NDSU's got a pretty decent guy that they run out there at the signal caller spot, and that is Easton Stick. These are his regular season numbers. Over 2,000 yards passing now for the season. That completion percentage doing well. I like the big number there, 22 touchdowns, only 4 picks. He has been very good at taking care of the football, 11 rushing touchdowns to go with it as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of this a little bit later, but something that's really stood out to me about Easton is, well, the Bison maybe aren't up there in terms of passing offenses. Their passing efficiency is on point, and that's been outstanding to see. I think they're ranked like 4th in the nation right now for passing efficiency. That's an outstanding place to be, especially for a team that's so run heavy, that when they're throwing with a purpose and they're connecting on it, and that's crucial.
Yeah, and Easton has been, we talked to Chris Kleiman on Monday, and he said, you know, our play charts, even from when Easton was a redshirt freshman, were very simple, and now they've grown and grown and grown, and it's because of how much Easton can handle, and that's such a valuable tool to have as a quarterback and as a play caller and as a head coach, to know that your quarterback has this game under control.
Yeah, and this Montana State defense has gone through some injuries. They've had to have some different guys moving in and rotating throughout this season, so they're a little bit weathered as far as it goes, and I'm excited to see how this defense is able to kind of wear them down, especially, you know, Coach Choate talked this week at his press conference about that muscle that they have, and they've really looked at their defensive line as a strength for them, but he is well aware that the Bison offensive line plans on wearing you down until you just can't physically play any longer, until your technique wavers the slightest bit. And that's when the Bison capitalize on you. He says he knows Chris Kleiman loves a 4-quarter game. He's happy to have that. He doesn't mind that they're not going to blow you out first quarter. They're waiting for that 4th quarter to just demoralize you.
Yep.
And so this is really going to be a cool battle of wills to see Easton Stick and his offense really start to shine. Maybe the brightest they have all season, and I think it's been an outstanding season.
Yeah, it has been a very good season for this Bison offense. All right, we're going to step aside. Still plenty more to come. We will take you right up to kickoff again, the game on ESPN3 today. So stay with us for the next hour, and we'll get you out to some playoff football.
Coach 'em Up time with Jason Ray, the wide receivers coach at North Dakota State. And Jason, today we are talking about simply catching the football.
Yes, catching the football. A simple fundamental, obviously, as a receivers coach here, the one thing that I want to impart to people is that the most important thing to use when catching the football is actually your eyes. Obviously you're going to utilize your hands to catch the football, but if you don't see your target, if you don't see what you're catching, it's going to be pretty difficult to use these. So in terms of catching the football, I want my guys to have soft hands, be very comfortable and relaxed when catching the hands. Don't want them to be too tense or anything like that. You want to have the ability to, one, track the football with your eyes, and the best way to do that is try to maintain your nose on the football along with your eyes. So as I'm tracking that football, I want to move. If it's out of my body frame, I want to try to frame that ball up with my nose and with my eyes, and then obviously have soft hands. Simply catching the ball in terms of hand placement, I want my hands to frame it up to create a diamond. And also just pluck the football out of there. So you're mainly focusing more so on catching the football with more of your fingertips as opposed to your palms. Simply hand-eye coordination is one thing that you continue to train. I use tennis balls in the off-season. I throw tennis balls off the wall while standing behind the receiver, so he's actually catching a blind throw. I'll be standing behind him, the ball's coming off the wall, and he's now having to track it, similar to tracking the football, but obviously with hand-eye coordination with tennis ball, it's a smaller target, it trains your fingertips and gives you the ability to be a better ball catcher.
So when you're using that window, you're actually looking through,
yes,
kind of aiming that thing up right at the point of the football.
Yes, right at the point of the football, framing it up, using that window, that diamond as some people call it, and obviously putting my nose and my eyes on the tip of that ball.
Sounds easy till you put the defense in there, and then it's a whole other game.
That's a whole other coach's corner there.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Jason Ray, the wide receivers coach for North Dakota State, coaching us up there a little bit on how to catch a football. There is Montana State hoping to catch a few footballs as they arrive in the Fargo Dome today, getting set to take on North Dakota State in the second round of the FCS playoffs. Let's take a look at the series history between these two, and it's pretty interesting. They haven't seen each other a ton, and none of these guys on the current Bobcats roster have played in the Fargo Dome. They had a game scheduled, but they bought it out. 35th meeting between these two storied programs, 7-4 at home as NDSU. Third meeting all time as Division I opponents. Let's learn a little bit more about these Bobcats, this current Bobcats. As I said, they have not played in the Fargo Dome, so we catch up with Ryan Gellner and the voice of the Bobcats.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Jay Sanderson is the play-by-play voice at Montana State University. And Jay, for your football team, it all runs through the quarterback, and this kid is good.
Yeah, Troy's a really gifted athlete, and we like to say he's the best linebacker playing quarterback in the country. I mean, he was recruited as a linebacker, and I believe he'll get drafted to the NFL as a linebacker. He is a legitimate athlete. He ran the 10-8 and the 100 as a senior in high school and won the Montana State track meet. And so at 6'2", 225 and can run that fast, he's a special kind of breed. And so when it became necessary for him to play quarterback, he stepped right in, and he's so smart, he picked it up right away.
1,200 yards, over 1,200 yards, 10 games in a row with a touchdown. He's, like you said, he's built like a linebacker, so he's a little bit like a fullback, but he's also got that amazing speed when he gets outside.
Right, and then you couple that with our other running back, Isaiah Ifanse, and it's a really interesting dynamic to have to defend because you'll see teams bring an extra man up in the box, and then you got a chance to throw it. Or if they leave a man out of the box, he can break the pocket and get to the edge, and he's strong enough to run in between the tackles also. And so he's a really interesting guy to game plan for, and we've played 12 games now, and we've seen 12 different approaches to it.
So Bison fans obviously interested in how well he can throw it because you don't see a lot on tape. The numbers don't blow off the page. How well does he throw the football?
Better than you think, and he's improved as the season has worn on. And I was looking at the numbers, and people regard us as a team that never throws the ball. We throw it 3 times more per game than North Dakota State, which is wild to think about. And so, again, he's a guy who can put it on the money when necessary, and he's improved a bunch as the season has went on. And you look last week at the touchdown pass he threw to Travis Johnson in the corner of the end zone. That ball was a dart. It was on the money, and so he's a guy who can put it where it needs to be.
As teams come into the Fargo Dome, crowd noise is always a factor. This is the first time Montana State has been in here. How do you think they deal with the crowd noise today?
I think they'll be fine. 2 weeks ago when we played at Montana, there were 26,000 people at that stadium, and their stadium sits down in a bowl. I know that the Bison played there a couple, 3 years ago, and so they've experienced that. It's not dissimilar. And then the final Saturday in October, we played at Idaho State, and it gets really noisy in there. It's an indoor building. They pipe in a lot of noise, and so I think our guys are prepared for it.
Idaho State's a tin box.
Really,
not a nice place to play.
It's an airplane hangar is what it is.
North Dakota State and Montana State. It should be a fun one today. Thank you for the time. Have a great call.
Glad to do it. Thank you.
Guys, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, it really stood out to me when he started talking about how Montana State actually throws the football more than the Bison, and that was news to me. I did not look that up, and so it caught my attention just because, like Ryan said, we really don't expect them to throw the football because there's so much made about this quarterback being such a runner. But when you look at it, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. Passing offense, the Bison are 83rd. Bobcats are 114th, but what really stands out, and you love this number, is that efficiency number. The Bison rank 4th in passing efficiency. Bobcats are 94th in passing efficiency. Now, I don't necessarily think that Anderson's a super bad thrower. I don't think he's confident in it yet. I don't think it's his skill set. I don't think he sees the things that Easton sees, because Easton, first of all, learned from Brock Jensen, Cole Davis, and Carson Wentz on how to be a quarterback and how to decipher what you're seeing. But even more than that, he has the confidence. He's built up all of that experience, because you remember his freshman year, his first year as a starting quarterback in college football, they ran the football quite a bit.
Ran the football a lot, and Anderson is going to be one of those guys that if his first read's not there, he's going to pull it down and just run.
Yeah,
Easton Stick is going to go through his progressions.
Yeah, Easton's surveying all
so
of
Anderson
his options.
Is definitely one read, pull it down. I'm going to make a positive play out of this. All right, let's go out to the tailgate lot. It's kind of cold out in Fargo today. I don't know if you knew that, but it is cold. So there are some hardy folks out there in the tailgate lot.
December or something.
Yeah, it is December 1. We joined Mike Morgan out in the tailgate lot.
All right, it's playoff time, and we are here, the tailgate section, so the questions get even more tough as we go along. I've got 2 contestants. Let's go ladies first. In your name?
Tammy.
Tammy, have you played this before?
I have not.
Have you heard about it?
I have.
You have. You know the questions aren't easy.
I know.
Okay. Here's your question, okay? North Dakota State led all schools with how many players named to the All-Missouri Valley Conference team? Is it 15 or 10? And you can ask the crowd.
It was 15.
It was 15. Is she right, crowd? Tammy, you are correct. That is 15. Very good. Very good. So was that tough?
No.
Okay. Wow, that's very good. You win a $50 gift card to the Lucky's 13 Pub.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Wow.
I know. I know.
The bar is set.
Yeah. Yep.
And your name?
Greg.
Greg. Here we go, Greg. Montana State's defense is plus 10 in the turnover margin, which is top 10 nationally. What is North Dakota State's turnover margin? Is it 16 or 13? Oh, he's looking for help.
I'd say go high, go high. Yeah, I'm going to go high. I'm going to go with 16, Mike.
Go 16. Are you guys sure on that? You're not?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Well, it is correct. It is 16. It is 16. Congratulations. You'll have to take you-know-who with you to the True Blue Social Club. You won yourself a $50 gift card.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for playing. Hey, go Bison. And we'll go back to the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. Still much more to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Whisper.
Pass protection.
Pass protection.
Backfield.
Backfield.
Thundering herd. Thundering herd.
Thundering herd.
Punt. Punt.
Punt.
Quarterback. Quarterback.
Quarterback.
Receivers.
Receiver.
Receivers.
Receivers.
Line of scrimmage.
Line of scrimmage.
Safety.
Safety.
Face mask. Face mask.
Where's pass?
Face mask. Face.
What was the last one?
Face mask.
Oh, it's that first pass.
Oh, we had 3 more.
Yeah.
That was very
Set them up and mow them down, those two. You know, those two, they've got communication skills down, nonverbal and stuff. They played opposite each other in corners, you know, for a couple of years.
I was very impressed.
So I was not shocked to see that they did very well in that one. That was an annoying one to edit. I'm going to put that out there because I got so many right. that was an annoying one to edit, but well done to them. All right, let's go back out to the Dome. Ryan Gellner standing by with our Stanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine injury report.
Yeah, guys, Dr. Pyatt joins us now. And, Bruce, we are talking a little bit about footwear because different surfaces mean different things that you're wearing on your feet as a player.
Absolutely. You know, back when we used to have the old tartan turf kind of in here, the guys were wearing almost a tennis shoe on it just because there was so much grip with it and so much traction that forced the energy of whatever they were doing up to the knee, and there was a much higher incidence of problems with knee injuries with that. Now we've got a turf that acts a little bit more like natural grass, and so we can go back more to those type of shoes for them that don't have quite so much traction with it, but have enough for them to perform at the level they need to.
Let's take a look at those shoes. You brought again a couple of props out, and the focus is on the underside of these shoes, which is where you dig in a little bit.
Exactly. So these are going to be kind of an intermediate length on the cleat that's there. Nowadays, all the cleats are all plastic. You know, I can remember playing and there would be metal pieces and everything else in them, but it's all kind of a plastic that's formed well, that's been dispersed out into areas that get some maximum control as they plant and cut with it. If we were playing outdoors on a natural turf, they'd have even a longer cleat on this, even some that you can remove and adjust based on how they do with it. Here, the athletes are going to have tried these a lot, and you know, they're practicing on this surface all the time, so they're going to be pretty dialed into what they need. I mean, I think back to last year when we were at Illinois State, those guys were changing cleats almost by the quarter when the conditions changed based on what was happening with it.
You've seen with the correct footwear, I would assume, injuries reduced because you're getting the right grip and the right support.
Yeah, I think it's really a trial and error as to figure out what it is for the most part, but I think the surface they're playing on has had the biggest change in that. And, you know, initially when we got on these surfaces, we tried to go with the old turf shoes and saw they didn't have enough traction. They didn't have the ability to cut without slipping and things. Now they've kind of dialed it into where they get the traction they need, but not so much like they had on the old turfs.
Good stuff again. Appreciate it. Alex, look at the size of the shoe. This is one big lineman shoe here. Guys, back to you.
I was telling Cam, we need to, that's like the proper size of a gravy boat on the Thanksgiving table. You need that big of a gravy boat for your mashed potatoes. All right, let's get back to actual stuff here. Jalen Allison was injured a few games ago. He is probable to go with a knee injury. Lance Dunn, we found out, did not practice last Saturday. He is warming up, as we've been told from our folks down there at the Dome. He is questionable with a leg injury, and we just found out that Dallas Freeman was hurt this week in practice, and he will not go today. So no Dallas Freeman.
Yeah, sustained an injury in 2 weeks ago's game.
Right.
But it is unlikely in this, or will not go. You know, this is a real big chess match now for NDSU that they haven't dealt with the rest of this season. You're only allowed to dress so many guys. It's a number that's down from the regular season. So you kind of have to be a little bit more picky because you have to think, who's your backup punter now? Who's your backup kicker? You have to think of some of those different positions that you normally wouldn't because you can dress so many guys. You can have everybody out there. They've dressed
65,
Jake Reinholz
65,
every game this year. Do you give him a jersey this week depending on the numbers you need and the injury list?
Yeah.
So.
Is it better to have a backup O-lineman or a backup kicker? Those are the discussions that they have to make.
Yes.
All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we will go out to the Dome, which is what you are looking at right now. The Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show rolls on.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
Hi, and welcome inside the Fargo Dome now. We pick up coverage inside the Fargo Dome along with Lee Timmerman. I am Ryan Gellner, and the Bison, well, Lee, they've switched to playoff mode, which, as we know, is a new mode around here. Things get ramped up.
Yeah, there's a good reason they do that because they're pretty darn good at it. But the biggest thing is, I think, is you go back to the bye. The Bison are when you give 2 weeks to study, and I know that Montana State played Incarnate Word, but don't believe anything that says that the Bison didn't put all their eggs in the Montana State basket, because they did, and they started preparing for NDSU last week, most of last week, and probably had most of the game plan in by the time Montana State's game was even played on Saturday.
They don't run into Montana State a lot. It's the first time they've played since 2010, and the programs have gone in separate directions. NDSU has won a lot, especially in the playoffs. Montana State, not real experienced when it comes to playoff football.
No, but it looks like the program's headed in the right direction, though. I think Coach Choate has some good things going, and in that state, anytime you can beat the Grizz 3 years in a row, everybody's smiling, and this is the gravy part of the year, I think, for Montana State. They're real happy to get to this point. Whether they can get beyond this point, I don't necessarily think that will happen. It'll play out later today, but I think the Bison are a big favorite today.
One of the things we always look at, and I know fans look at, is teams coming into the Fargo Dome for the first time. It's hard to believe, but Montana State is coming into the Fargo Dome the first time. Now, they have played against Montana, which is a loud outdoor stadium, which is in a bowl. They've played Idaho State. I don't know if they've seen anything quite like the Fargo Dome, but they feel like they're ready for this atmosphere.
I think there's some confidence in terms of playing in this building. What they probably need is more confidence playing against the Bison defense, because I think this Bison defense is something that there is no way Montana State could be prepared for, especially up front. The defensive line, what the Bison have defensively and the defensive line position, there is no way Montana State can be ready for that at all today.
Let's get into our Dakota Magic Casino keys to the football game. And it starts at quarterback for Montana, and it's aware of Anderson, because the quarterback is Troy Anderson, and he is a good one. The numbers don't blow off the paper because he's not a true quarterback, but he's filling in nicely. 106 rushing yards a game, a ton of touchdowns, especially on the ground. We're not sure how well he throws it. This guy is likely a future NFL linebacker playing quarterback for Montana State.
Yeah, it certainly is kind of interesting to see what they did with Anderson, because in fact, Ryan, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, that if you put this in an NDSU scenario, it's like taking Jabril Cox and making him your quarterback, which is kind of what Montana State did game 3 or game 4, something like that, earlier this year.
He was forced into action. He still may play some linebacker today. We'll see. But it's a different style. When they want to run the football, they run it with the quarterback. They don't necessarily hand off, although their running back, not too bad either. Number 2 is the offensive line for North Dakota State. It's a key to this football game because Montana State, they pride themselves on the defensive line. Their defensive line, as you can see, 46 tackles for loss this year among their front 5, with 18.5 sacks coming from them. The Bison, however, Lee, have only given up 10 sacks. If the Bison play well today, that offensive line needs to open up holes. They need to protect the quarterback.
Well, we're pretty sure the Bison will be able to find a running game, and once they do that, that will really open some things up through the passing game. But you're right, the offensive line, if they give Easton Stick time today, and I think they will, look for 4 verticals, because I think the Bison through the air really have an opportunity to get some things deep downfield, especially if that strong safety has to come up and play the run. The free safety is what the Bison call middle closed. Well, if there's one guy over the middle and you can get multiple verticals up, that one guy can't cover them all. The corners aren't very good. They're not very physical, so the Bison will have some stuff running outside, I think, against those corners, also passing, but look for Stick to have success down the field today.
And the Bison, again, down a receiver, as Beth and Alex reported just moments ago. Dallas Freeman out for this football game, so there'll be a couple of young guns that get a chance in this football game. Number 3, this could be a key any game, and it's don't turn it over. But that's interesting because Montana is really good. Montana State, that is really good at forcing turnovers, and they've done a lot of it lately. 6 straight games with multiple turnovers and 4 straight games with an interception. And like you said earlier, they happen to win those games. That helps.
Yeah, it's not by accident that Montana State was 4-4. Now they're 8-4 in the playoffs in the second round here after a win. But anytime you can get that in the plus category, we've seen that. The Bison are one of the best in the country in turnover margin, certainly to your advantage. And you know that's something that NDSU, they talk about it all the time. It's ball security. Easton Stick doesn't throw many interceptions. If he doesn't have it, he'll throw it away. So NDSU knows that quick change can really hurt you. because they do it to other teams.
Montana State has also forced 11 fumbles this year. So on paper, a pretty good defense against North Dakota State's offense. This game, though, Lee, is not played on paper. There are some holes on this Montana State defense. Probably the most notable one, the one you mentioned at defensive back. Easton Stick, both running the football today and throwing it, could have a monster day.
Yeah, I think Easton Stick will probably be a little bit more into the running game, quarterback run. Look for him for the advantage. Of course, you get an extra blocker, but I just think he's going to be able to hit some things through the air. And the Big Sky's not known for its intricate defenses.
Or defense at all.
Well, some teams. Weber at least plays a little bit. But so I think the Bison will not have too much trouble.
But at the same time, I don't disagree. At the same time, North Dakota State, they can't get caught looking ahead because it is the playoffs. They've got to do their things. What they do really well, though, is play defense. They're against a running quarterback. In the past couple of years, Lee, we've seen teams that have been able to gash the Bison with the quarterback run. It's what Montana State does well. And when I say gash the Bison, gash them for yards, not necessarily points. Well, today will be a big test.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson's big plays, he's a really big kid. He'll impress you with his athleticism, and he's been able to run through tackles quite a bit and gotten 50 and 60-yard touchdowns. I don't know if that's going to happen on the ground against NDSU because the Bison are so fast. Those defensive ends are so fast. Jabril Cox is fast. You know, they have speed all over the place. So a big running play today might be 15 and 20 yards instead of 6 points that the Bobcats have gotten a little bit used to.
This place is filling up, that's for sure. The Fargo Dome crowd making its way into the Fargo Dome for a football game that kicks off just shortly after 2 o'clock. And again, you can catch that game on ESPN3 today, which is an online version only. Of course, you can stream it on your TV as well. When we come back, we will chat with the head coach, Chris Kleiman, along with a couple other things. Back to the Fargo Dome when we return.
Joined by former Bison Chase Morlock for another episode of Once a Bison, Always a Bison. Chase, this group went undefeated in the regular season. You were a part of a perfect regular season as well in 2013. How tough is this really to do?
It's incredibly hard to do. College football at this level, to go undefeated, you know, first off in the Missouri Valley, which is, I mean, I'm obviously a little biased, but the toughest conference in the nation in our division, I think. Now, you know, pushing forward into the playoffs to try and complete that with a national championship, it's going to be a heck of a challenge. 2013, I came in as a young kid, little 18-year-old kid, didn't know what was going on, and unbelievable what they were able to do and to be a part of that and just get a feel and playing with some of the greats like Brock and all that.
Don't cut yourself short here. You played a huge role. You played in 13 of 14 games that year.
I was a big special teams player that first year, and it's incredible. But it was, I mean, still the same stuff we were preaching back then. You know, 1 week at a time mentality, 1 game at a time, and that's really what it takes.
You made a path for yourself as really kind of a utility guy out there for the Bison. Played a little bit of that fullback spot as well for them. How about Malmstrom? How about Robbins?
Oh, they're critical, and I got a huge spot in my heart for them because I did kind of transition to being that fullback utility guy, and just, you know, watching Malmstrom and Brock, and, you know, just the role they play is, you know, it's one that you don't see. You know, you don't get all the hoorah, you know, with the fullback position. It's a nasty job. They're doing some tough work in there, fighting some big DNs, and, you know, the way they work and grind, and it's so critical. The fullback role in our offense is huge, and it's fun for me, you know, as a guy that kind of came before them, just to see them and taking that utility job and doing whatever they got to do to help us out. It's the fullback's nasty job, but I love it. Yeah.
Well, the Bison are getting ready for a tough start to another road to Frisco, but you're taking on a big challenge here as well right now. I'm sure you're wondering what we are doing in this empty space. What are you doing?
Yeah, so this is, we just signed a lease to this building here. We're going to be in this warehouse. So Aaron Lean, my partner, basketball player at MSUM, and one of my best friends from Moorhead High. Former Spud, yeah. You know, for the last 6 months, we kind of started this business, Rise Training and Fitness. We've had a long-time dream of, you know, getting this gym going because, you know, throughout my whole life, I've had unbelievable strength coaches from 6th grade all the way up to, you know, one of the best in the nation, and Coach Kramer. I take that back. He is the best in my mind. I love that guy to death.
He can't still make you do a workout. It's okay.
No, he can't, no. But seriously, I give all the credit in the world to Coach Kramer because he deserves it. He's unbelievable. And now I want to be that guy that can help pass that on. And, we kind of came in with two things, and it's adult fitness and athlete performance. So adult fitness, if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd be training adults, I probably would have said not a chance. But, after my dad got diagnosed with cancer and going forward through that whole story and him passing away, it opened my eyes to just this huge population that I think I can really help with. And moving forward, we finally got to this building here. We're going to get in here and turf it all. We got a lot of work ahead of us here the next month. We're trying to get open early January, and then we'll be running.
That's awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Look forward to coming out here and joining you for a workout, hopefully with a whole bunch of the Fargo community, Fargo-Moorhead community, and some big Bison and Spud fans as well. Well, as we do. Once a Bison.
Always a Bison.
The Fargo Dome now as North Dakota State gets set for Montana State, second round of the FCS playoffs. And North Dakota State, as you know, not only gets it done on the football field, but they get it done in the classroom as well. And that starts this week's Herdline News. We start in the classroom as 5 Bison student athletes were named to the Missouri Valley Football Conference All-Academic Team. Tight end Ben Ellefson, defensive end Greg Menard, and quarterback Easton Stick all were first-team selections. Safety Robbie Grimsley and wide receiver return specialist Darius Shepard were second-team selections. And then 3 players were honorable mention in the classroom. They are linebacker Dan Marlette, center Tanner Volson, and punter Garrett Wagner. 15 Bison players were selected as all-conference picks for their performances on the football field. 9 players were on the first team. Darius Shepard is the first player in a long time, in fact, second in conference history, to be named a first-team selection at both offensive position and a special teams position. His work as a wide receiver and his work as a return specialist. Other first-teamers include quarterback Easton Stick, offensive lineman Tanner Volson and Zach Johnson, linebacker Jabril Cox, defensive end Greg Menard, safety Robbie Grimsley, and punter Garrett Wagner. Stick was named the league's Offensive Player of the Year, and Cox was named the league's Defensive Player of the Year. Greg Menard was selected as a nominee for the Mayo Clinic Comeback Player of the Year award. The 2-time FCS All-American is the Bison team leader in sacks this year after sitting out all of last year following ACL surgery. I caught up with head coach Chris Kleiman just outside the NDSU locker room moments ago, and I asked him about the difference of having Greg Menard on the team as he is this year and watching from the sidelines like he was last year. Coach, how different is this team with Greg Menard in the lineup than out like he was last year?
Well, we're much more explosive on defense. We're deeper at the defensive line position, and I think Greg's had a phenomenal year. To watch the playoff run like he had to watch last year, to get an opportunity to play, and there's a number of guys in that position, but Greg makes our defense really, really, really good.
Playoff football, something changes. It changes in the fans. It changes in the football team, I would assume, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're playing in December. What a great time of year. And we told our guys, hey, we're built for this kind of run. That's why you have Coach Kramer doing as great job as he has, and our guys staying focused and dominating the details. And that's what it's going to come down to today, is we have to really detail our work against a really good team.
Your defense goes up against a running quarterback who is probably the most physical running quarterback you've seen.
He's a great player, and he's going to have success. You're not going to just say, hey, we're just going to shut him down. We have to limit some of his success, and they're going to spread us out, so it becomes one-on-one tackles on that quarterback at 225 pounds is a tough deal. So we have to be able to get off blocks with other guys, kind of swarm to the football, get some extra hits on him, and try to limit some of his success.
Let's talk real quick about your offense going against their defense. Their defensive front is pretty good.
Yeah, they really are, and they're more of a softer shell defense, which a lot of teams stack the box and we're able to get behind them. It'll be interesting to see if they play that softer shell where we may have to have a 10-play drive getting 5, 6, 7, 8 a crack. We take that, or are they going to bring people up, and then hopefully we can maybe hit some plays over the top. But Easton's got a pretty good game plan, and we're ready to execute it.
Thank you for the time. Good luck this week.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
They are lined up heading into the Fargo Dome for playoff football action, which is around the corner. We wrap up the show from our Fargo studios next.
All right, welcome back to the tailgate section. Normally we wait till the end of our question and answer period before we get a cheer, but this is one of the largest gatherings that I think we've had on throughout the entire year. So let's start it out with a cheer, okay? Just a little loud roar.
Yeah!
Yep. Okay. All right. They're all excited, and I've got my 2 contestants, and they're excited as well. Let's start with you, shall we? What's your name?
Jill.
Jill, are you ready to play?
Oh, yes.
I need to tell you that no one has gotten this wrong since we started, okay? Here's your question. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Lance Dunn and Bruce Anderson lead all NDSU rushers with more than 600 yards each for the season. With me so far?
Mm-hmm.
How many total players have rushed for more than 100 yards for the year? Is it 5 or 4? And you can ask the crowd if you need it.
Guys? Oh, come on.
Yeah, that was it. 5 or 4?
4.
Let's think about this harder, okay, shall we? Is it 5 or 4? And let's ask the crowd again one more time.
5.
See, it's got to be 5.
It's got to be 5.
It is 5. See how simple that was? It was 5. Congratulations, you just won a $50 True Blue Social Club certificate. Okay. High five. Right? Okay. Well, that had to relieve a little pressure. Huh? Okay, here's question number 2, and I have to ask you, what's your name?
Liz.
Liz, here we go. Which NDSU Bison player has caught more touchdown passes this season? Is it Ben Ellefson or Darius Shepard?
Shepard.
Let's rethink this one more time. And let's ask the crowd, see what they think. Is it Ellefson or Darius Shepard?
Ellefson. Ellefson.
Ellefson is correct. By the way, it's close. Ellefson has caught 7 and Darius Shepard has caught 6. And you get to catch this, which is a $50 gift card to the Lucky's 13 Pub.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Wow, that was fun, wasn't it? Thank you so much for playing. Go Bison! Go Bison!
Okay, we get into our Bobcat heavy lifting report. We've singled out Jabril Cox, the linebacker for the Bison, who is just about the same size as the quarterback for Montana State. The key points that I put on here is to spy that quarterback, to make sure that Troy Anderson doesn't get out, limit that run as well, and then my favorite one, be a dude. Just be a dude today.
We do say that quite a bit
Just
about
be a
him,
dude.
He is a dude.
He is a dude.
I think one of my favorite parts about this week's press conference with Coach Cho was him going down on a 7-minute rant about each and every one of the Bison football players that are outstanding. Well, when he got to Jabril Cox, he said this guy should be starting at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He was trying to ship him off, folks. He doesn't even want him in FCS football because it really is. He's just aware of how good Jabril Cox is.
Do you blame him? I wouldn't want to see him week in and week out. All right. We are going to step aside. When we come back, we will put our final thoughts in on this one as the Bison and the Bobcats get set to play some playoff football. Stay with us here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
2 minutes and 50 seconds on our Coors Light countdown clock before the Bison and the Bobcats play. Let's go out to the Dome where the action will be happening. We check in with our guys, Ryan Gellner and Lee Timmerman, for their final thoughts. Guys?
Hey, Alex, final thoughts for me is really North Dakota State's offensive line against the defensive line from Montana State. Montana State prides itself on its defensive line. It might be their best position group, and they have said all week, read it in print, that NDSU's offensive line is just average, just another team. I think NDSU's offensive line takes that personally this week and maybe pushes a little bit harder. I really want to watch that matchup, NDSU's O-line against the Montana State D-line. Lee?
Well, they're better than average. But my final thoughts is kind of one of the theme of this show and the theme of the week, and that's the running quarterback with Anderson. When's the last time a running quarterback has beaten the Bison? Hasn't happened. I don't think it's going to happen today. I know Jerick McKinnon came close, but that was a guy who was a running back in the NFL, a different style of offense. I think the Bison defense shuts down the Bobcats today.
That's ours, guys. How about yours?
All right, thank you very much, guys. For me, I think if the Bison get points early, that's going to be bad for Montana State. They're not built to chase points. They are running team. Running teams do not get to chase points. They just can't do that. So I think if the Bison are able to go down on their first couple of possessions, put some points up on the board, get it out to a 2 or a 3 score lead, not even 21, but 17 points, get it out to that before Montana State gets their offense going.
A casual 3-score lead, no big deal. You know what? I do think it's going to be a little. I know. I think it's going to be a little bit slower start to things. I think the Bison are going to be perfectly content. You heard Chris say it. Maybe a 10-play drive, something like that. Really eat up that time. Really own the field here. My big point is not to panic, and I don't think that's as much to the Bison as I think it is to the fan base. It's okay if this one is a little bit of a slow start, because you know what? You look down this list of rankings in the NCAA, the Bison trounce Montana State in every category, and I think today is going to be no problem for them. Just take your time.
A 4-quarter game, right?
It will be a 4-quarter game.
4-quarter game, and that's not something that Montana State really wants, because I don't think they're built for
They're not built for the longevity yet. They're still on that upswing of trying to come back into relevance. They are working really hard on strength and training. The Bison are really good at it.
They're already there. Yeah, so 25 seconds on our Coors Light countdown clock. Again, this game is on ESPN3. We will give you plenty of opportunity to get over there and make sure that you are watching this one and join us for the Bison Football Show tomorrow morning at 10:30. That'll do it for the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the game.